I warmly welcome everyone who is joining with us today to this webinar on Introduction to Web 3.0 and Blockchain. I warmly welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Srinath Perera, who is the Chief Architecture of WSO2, and he's he's an outstanding alumni of University of Moratuwa as well. He has provided his valuable service for the software industry for 18 years and counting as a distributed system programmer, research scientist, and as a member of the Apache Software Foundation. He is an exceptional software architect, scientist, author, speaker, and a realist. So I also welcome Dr. Surya, who's joining with us today, and everyone who's joining for the webinar. Thank you for joining with us. Dr. Srinath, shall we start?
Yes, okay. Thanks, Till. Good morning, everybody. Just quick couple of things. So when I do slides, I kind of figured out that most of the things I want to tell about Web3 also shared with blockchain. So I would come to Web3 in last few slides, but the most concept I'll talk around blockchain. That's one. The second is I'm by nature a skeptical and critical guy. So do not, this does not mean that I do not see, I mean, some things I would be critical, some things I'll be critical, but I still think there's potential. It's just that it'll take time to make things work out, etc. Right? So so this is not a marketing talk, right? It's I'm trying to explain as it is. So okay, let's start. Sorry. Okay, trust. So if you step back and like look at the world, like one co-ingredient of the world we live in, the reason it works, how it can work is trust. For example, we trust that if we earn something, we can keep it, right? For example, if whatever we earned gets stolen, nobody will work hard. Right? So that trust is given by government, police, legal system, etc. Right? And if you, for example, think about right, even now, unfortunately, if you go to supermarket, you could buy a lot of things that is created in very far away. Now, if you think how that is possible due to many things. First, one is that this financial system let us, like what we call LCs, that we basically pay the money but hold it escrow in the bank so that it wait until the goods actually come, and fact that we can trust the good what is promised to be, right? And because we trust that the transported mediums can bring them fast enough so they don't get rotten, right? Or that it won't get stolen on the way, etc. Now, and when you start to see that, and when you start to look at how that trust is made possible, it has made possible by the government, police, banks, a lot of the legal system, a lot of institutions around us that made them possible. So now one thing, if you are to remember from the blockchain, what is blockchain? What it does is, sorry, okay, what it does is it gives a new way to establish trust. I will explain what that means. If there's one thing you want to remember, that is what you want to remember, because when you understand that, you would start to see the use cases and what's going on, why. I'm sure most of you had heard about double entry bookkeeping in your school. Okay, if you did commerce in O levels, you would have learned it. If you haven't, as engineer, you should know this. I don't think Moratuwa syllabus has double entry bookkeeping anywhere, but this is the one fundamental thing you need to understand. The idea is simple, right? So every transaction is written in two places. There's a one person who gains, one person who basically you get credit and you get debit. Now this is very powerful idea, because then you cannot cook the books, right? If I have a company and if I cook the books, at least in theory, somebody can go to all other people I interact with and check their books and cross-check against mine and find the problem. That doesn't mean there's no fraud, but it's harder. And the frauds are very hard to hide from somebody who understands the system and how it works. Okay, now remembering that, the best way to think about the blockchain is to think it as a ledger, means a book. Think there's a book. It's append only, you cannot delete. Okay, when you write something, you cannot change it, and you cannot deny that you wrote it, and you cannot destroy it. What blockchain gives is that it gives this very simple thing. It gives you this ledger where you can write pretty much anything, but you cannot edit it, you cannot destroy it, and you cannot tell I didn't wrote it. And very interestingly, now on top of that, you can build all kind of trust, everything you need. Right? For example, if I take a loan from Tilina, and if this book is available, I write in the book that I took this money, I will return by this day with this much interest. Right? Now, 3 months down the line, I cannot tell I didn't get it. Now, this is same, right? And then now on top of that, you could build a reputation system. You can build a crypt, which basically extract information from these records and tell these people haven't paid, so don't lend to them. Right? And by cross-checking all these entries, you can verify. Right? And same for, for example, if we can get like all our leaders to write in that book what they're going to do and what they did and etc., life will be very easy. Just a couple of days back, I was reading the Yudanjan team. They have this fake news service, right? I was reading through the fake news, and it's funny because people tell lies on all things that are very simply verified, but they just tell it anyway. Sorry, okay, back to blockchain. So blockchain is that book that cannot be edited. And on top of that, you can build trust. Now we will go into use cases and then you start to see what I'm talking about. When you understand that, you will start to see other things clicking. Okay, very concrete example, right? So if you have, or maybe in the future, if you are going to buy a land, right? Now, lands are expensive and there's a lot of fraud, right? So now the requirement is that there's land, there's an owner. Now, basically some document saying he's the owner. Now, owner can transfer it to somebody, but only once, right? And only the owner should be able to transfer it, not other people. Okay. Now, let's first quickly think, if you have that magic blockchain book, what would you do, right? So basically we need the initial entry. Maybe land registry come and put a initial entry saying, right? And then, okay, if I have some land, I want to sell it to Tilina, I would basically put an entry saying, this land I transfer to Tilina. Now, once the transaction is finished, I don't own it anymore, and I cannot transfer it anymore. Only the Tilina can transfer it. Okay. So to happen, we have to make sure that that record has to go, is there and cannot be removed, right? And the two records cannot go in at the same time concurrently, right? But assuming those things are there, land registry is solved. Now let us, to understand how this works, let us try to understand how this is actually handled. The way it is actually handled is by building a lot of infrastructure and a lot of systems and a lot of rules. First of all, there's land registry, right? They keep record of who owned the land, right? And hopefully they have the copies, right? Because if there's big fire, we don't want to know that nobody knows. Like there's no other copy, we don't want that, right? And of course, we issue a deed to the owner as another copy of the what's in land registry, saying, okay, he owns that. Okay, so far so good. Now, if you want to transfer, usually you have to do it with the lawyer. So that's the law, because he is responsible to at least to make sure that it happens properly. And he takes some amount of responsibility. Okay, but still, a lot of fraud possible, right? For example, you could go and sell your land. Now, assuming the deed can be forged, it takes about a month to get it registered in the land registry, which means within that you can try to sell it again, right? But of course, so I mean, if you check the thing, there isn't any one trick that stops that. But of course, it is stopped by basically going back and basically punishing people who broke it, right? And of course, somebody can masquerade, right? I can come and say I'm Tilina, right? I mean, basically use the ID. I mean, okay, hopefully if they look similar. So there are checks, but nothing is foolproof. So hope you see what's happening, right? So this system we had put together very carefully with a lot of rules, a lot of professionals, a lot of processes, like there are courts just taking care of the land disputes forever and forever, right? So you can replace with this magical book, right? We'll talk about how it works, right? So basically this is the promise of blockchain. So you will see the same theme repeating. In our world, there are systems we built, they work, sort of. I mean, they work. I mean, the world is moving. We are eating apples grown in some places, the phones built in there, etc. Right? So whole supply chain and the world works. So it works, but a lot of those things maybe we can optimize if you have a book like this. Okay, so on the ledger, so if you have a ledger like this, basically, so basically, Srinath, basically I come, show my credentials and show, say I want to transfer my this land to Tilna, and the system checks whether the owner of the land and the Srinath are the same. Okay, they are same, and there's a new entry added, and done. Right now, I lost the ownership. He has the ownership. If there's dispute, we can come and recheck. I cannot come back and tell that I didn't wrote it. Now, okay, but you have to also remember that the weakness is at the last mile, and I'm ignoring the fact that, for example, of course, I can come and say that my key was stolen. Okay, now it create another new. I mean, it's again now at that point it gets very complicated, right? What happens? It's stolen. So if so then it's a different case, right? So I'm ignoring that complexity, but assuming that we can keep some credential. I mean, maybe it is biometrics, right? Maybe there's a way to. I'm using the biometrics again. Biometrics can be faked to a certain level. This never ends, right? But it is better than the other system. So as I said before, so the world works through a lot of these institutions, systems, processes, laws that make it work, make the trust work. They're not perfect, but by bringing blockchain, bringing this book this magical book, we can make it better. So how does it work? I won't explain the full algorithm, but the simple idea is this. There is something called hash chain. Idea is simple. You have a first block, you hash it, you take the hash and append it to the second block, and you take the hash of that and append it to the next block, take together hash, append it to the next block. Now you have a hash chain. Now, if I want to change the third block, to change the third block, I had to change the fourth block. And to change the fourth block, I had to change the fifth block. So, so without creating completely parallel chain, I cannot change anything in this chain. That's the idea. But it's only safe if the last block is secure, right? Because if the last block, the most recent block is not secure, then I can create another parallel chain. So what the Bitcoin algorithm does is, it basically make people compete to own a block. because if you get to define the block, you get a lot of blockchain. So that's why you get a lot of Bitcoins. That's why everybody is trying to get it. So they have created this game where you can make money by guessing the, by creating the block. To create that block, you need to find a hash with certain properties. So they compete because they don't know who would win, but one of them would win. Now he owns it. He get some coins, so he attached that. Now the next chain. Usually they consider chain is safe after about 4 blocks has gone forward. So now there can be conflicts, there can be parallel chains. The probabilities are less, but it's not impossible. Now, if you somehow control 50% of people who are in the algorithm, you can do whatever you want. So, for example, Ethereum was hacked, and then more than 50% get out together and they reverse it. Can be done. So, okay, to iterate, way this works is that there's this hash chain. You cannot change anything in the middle without changing the whole thing, everything upstream. It is safe as the last block, and the consensus algorithms is a way to block. And they had created a way so that you can make money by getting that block, so that people participate and play, and then system works. So there are public, so these slides has a lot more information than I'll speak out, right? I will share slides also. So there's public versus private blockchain. What that means is that public blockchain, anybody can come in, everybody's equal, usually. Private blockchains, it's restricted, and some people has more voting power. So there may be admins who can change the behavior. Usually private blockchains are more for organization or a consortium, something private. Public blockchain is everybody. Now, private blockchains are not as decentralized as the public blockchain, but it is better than nothing. Because let's say there's a private blockchain within a bank. Now, if everybody in the bank, you can agree, you can reverse things in there. That is true. But all the players inside the bank, to get them to agree is hard, and the probability that somebody will talk is high. Now, like let's say you within a bank, if you have a chain that needs 50 people to agree, the possibility of doing a fraud there is much less than in a case where just 2 people can agree and do fraud. Right. So it is not safe as the public blockchain, but better than nothing. So what main impact is that we replace some of these systems, processes, the professionals that we had placed there to do these things, such as banks, such as some of the government functions, such as some of the legal system functions, etc. Some of them can be replaced. So there are, I see 4 main reasons to do blockchain. This is not exhaustive, but they are common reasons. First is that you want to create trust. Let's say you are an organic food company, you sell organic fruits. Let's assume that you are a honest company. You are only sourcing from the organic buyers, organic sellers, and you want to sell it. But people don't trust you. they are telling that we don't know where this came from. Okay, what do? You go to, okay, one possibility is that you can advertise, you can get, what do you say, you can get a famous sport person to talk for you, way of building trust, or you can try a blockchain. So you can basically get everybody in your supply chain to add records when the fruits come. Like, for example, the fruit can have a certain batch code, and then you can show where this came from, this, like this, from here, right? So if somebody wants to check, he can take the code and he can trace, and then he can go and talk to people. He can talk to people and ask, like, on this day, did you sell this thing? How much, etc. Right? So so it creates the possibility that somebody can go and check and verify. So this last point you need to, it's important. The blockchain do not really enforce the thing, but it can create an environment where the enforcement is easy. Right? For example, now for example, I am as the organic fruit company. Yes, maybe I can basically give money to some people to lie for me, although they don't do it organic, right? But it's harder for me to do it for everybody, right? And also now let's say there is a court case against my company, and so that whoever challenging can basically, they can look at the blockchain and pick anybody they like as witnesses, right? And now I had to get them to lie under oath. I mean, some people will do it, most won't. It's a huge risk for them, right? So what you have to understand is that the blockchain do not enforce this, but it creates an environment where it can be enforced to a certain level. So this first. The second, the first is, so you might use blockchain so that you create trust. Basically, you create an environment, others can verify, so we are both better. The second case is that if you are a company, sometimes the government can come and force you to do things you don't want to, such as apparently Google was forced to change their DNS entries momentarily so that somebody else can, basically government can intercept. So they did this trick that they put that control of some of those things under a consortium, so they cannot change it by themselves. They don't have the right anymore. So if government wants to now get companies, sometimes use blockchain to give up your control. Somebody come and say, reduce his rate. So it's a good thing. Some better, right? So this may be multiple people working together, right? And maybe to audit, etc. So these are other use cases. I won't go through them. A lot of this has been discussed, right? So we already talked about this, right? So the one big impact is that basically we can keep ledgers, these magic books of roles, assets, what people can do, etc. It will reduce the paperwork. It will make it easy to verify, right? Uh, like, for example, so think like NIC. On this ledger, you write down, this is this person, right? Name Srinath. This is photo, right? He has this education, etc. And even this is his photo of his iris, right? So then I want to go and prove to somebody that I am Srinath. It is easy. I mean, right now, for unbeliever to go and prove that I'm Srinath is very hard. I mean, you can try that, right? I mean, it's, I mean, of course, you can show you are Srinath by circumstantial evidence, but if somebody wants like real evidence, it's very hard. So, okay, so I mean, this kind of a thing can remove all this form with 20 pages that happen when you work with the government or when you do something. You can remove this, right? Because what you want, you go, you tell this what I want, this is me. Now you verify that this is you. The moment you verify, it has your all the records, and you tell, okay, I am at the DMV. Sorry, DMV means the mode registration. So you can see these 5 fields. Okay, that's enough, fine, good, you get it, right? So it can really improve things. I mean, if you can put it together. Blockchain can, so we'll talk about this on the DeFi in a minute. Basically, most things banks do, blockchain can replace, right? Because you can replace them with, so okay, I didn't explain this. The smart contract is a code run on top of that book. So you have some code, it basically, whenever it changes something, it writes to the book, right? So then the outcome of that code can be audited and everybody can agree upon. So that's a smart contract. So so for example, so okay, I'm taking a loan from Tilina. I agree to pay him back. Then so basically there's one entry basically saying, I give him this much money, his car is collateral, etc. And so basically we can write algorithm saying like this. Now within this many days, if he didn't pay, the car's ownership is taken over, or if he pay, and when the bank send the event saying this payment is done, basically you revert it back automatically. So fine, then you basically you verify that code and then you put it to the blockchain. It will run in one of the machines and the state will be updated, right? So using this idea, we can create accounts, lending, escrows, crowdfunding, reputation, like anything that bank, okay, I won't say anything, but most of things bank can do, it can do. Okay, well, I explained the smart contracts. So one other angle is that people are trusting internet less and less because it's owned by big organizations. And I mean, Google, Facebook, they suddenly change the algorithms. And maybe you are making a lot of money this month, but Google thinks that algorithm is not good anymore. Now suddenly your money disappears. Okay, whether it's fair or not, complicated question, right? But people don't like that. So they want, there's a move. I mean, we will come back to it. It's been now called Web3, which is that people are saying we need these big infrastructures, the search, the Facebook, the Twitter. Okay, I'm too old. I don't name the most cool ones anymore, but these should be decentralized, running everywhere, nobody controlling, etc. And blockchain can do that. At least in theory, there's a lot of detail to be figured out. Okay, so far I was talking about all the happy facts about blockchain, but there are challenges and there are risks. All said and done, it's still slow, can't high latency and low throughput. I mean, there are new and competing implementations that are doing better, but I think nothing it can do like really handle the world load in a lot of use cases. So it works for some use cases, but it's still slow. It is private only up to point, because somebody who knows what he's doing might be able to figure out who you are. And the moment he figures it out, he knows everything you did in blockchain. That is scary. That's much worse than the current situation when it's tripped. It use a lot of storage. Some again, this performance, throughput, and latency issues most probably will be addressed, although it might take a little bit time to figure it out. Sorry. Okay, there are risks. There are big risks. If you put everything in blockchain and the blockchain get hacked or stop working, world goes down. Not good. So, I mean, we are experiencing what going electricity means, right? So, same, right? So that's huge risk. We need, if we are doing this big time, we have to handle this carefully. Sometime, if blockchain do something wrong, there's no way to reset it, right? For example, by mistake, I was going to transfer to Tilina, but I transferred to Sulochana. And if Sulochana says that I'm not going your land back, there's nothing you can do in that blockchain. Like basically, on the algorithm world, there's nothing you can do. Maybe you can go into the court and file a case. Very complicated, right? So, and one other angle of this is that now let us say, so we set up a banking system, right, with these rules, and then later figure out that's not good. I mean, this happened enough, right? In when 2009 US financial collapse happens, the derivatives, people are thinking derivatives is the best thing in the world, and now suddenly they start to tell very bad. Now, when that happens, it's not easy to reset this blockchain thing. Very hard, right? So there are risks there. And sometimes we don't know what's going on, like because when we put together the algorithms, but the behavior is evolved. Evolved behaviors are very hard to guess, and sometimes they do things we don't expect them to do. And blockchain says that there's no regulator, nobody mess with you, but that's not always good, because then the people who know less can get advantage of. And also governments and regulators are very unclear about what they think, and that adds risk. So you can check this later. Some of these use cases we can do right now. Some are limited, we need more work, some need significant breakthroughs, etc. So this is the utopia, the perfect world where everybody has a decentralized ID. If you want to verify something, if you want to demonstrate that you have a degree, or you want something, or you went to this school, whatever, it's very easy, instantaneous, etc. All the public transactions are in a blockchain. You can't, it's very hard to cheat. Like I donate to a charity and I can see where my each dollar went. The decisions are recorded. You can go back and ask why. You don't have to shout at each other saying, you said it, no, I don't said it, you said it. We don't have to do it anymore. So all the assets are recorded this way. So this very nice world, very efficient, right? And very less risky, etc. But of course, the thing about all these technologies that everybody tells the one side of the story, but leave the details out. So there, I mean, I already told some of the risks you have to remember. But what really actually happened is that reality is more complicated, right? So basically, we had to start with the low risk use cases, right? We don't want to put maybe even banking, I mean, not the whole banking systems on here. We don't want those, right? But I mean, this is not a joke, right? For example, I mean, to give you an example, there's one time, okay, let's say you run software for the bank, so for a hospital. If you do some mistake and there's some bug, and if they cannot log in, what happens? People die because basically if the doctors cannot log in, I mean, if you do this perfect system where to issue each medicine, the doctor has to go to the system and approve, and you cannot log into the system, all goes away, right? And the problem is that it's sometimes if it worked for like 10 years and one day it didn't work, people might not even know how to do it by paper, or it will take too long, etc. Right? So this is very serious thing. So we have to start with low risk use cases, then work through, etc., figure out the problems, etc. And it will coexist with existing systems. It cannot replace overnight. We are looking at 20-30-year transition. By the time like you are retiring, we might be in fully blockchain. And there will be resistance. People won't like it. People try to game it, all these things. So it's hard work to actually get it done. There's a lot of frameworks. Ethereum is kind of the, if you want to pick something without checking the details, pick Ethereum. It's the most widely accepted, but then you can look into the details. The newer ones are more faster, they're better in some way. Now you have to make sure that some way is what important to you. So okay, so last few words I will touch on Web3, NFT, and DeFi. One thing you have to remember is that although there was a lot of buzz, although there was a lot of money invested, right? And although there were a lot of money made, there's a lot of use cases where people get a lot value out of blockchain. Okay, so there are two ways, at least in the way I had seen it, there are two ways people made money out of crypto. One is by buying Bitcoins. I mean, if you have bought 5 years ago and just hold on, you might even be millionaire because it appreciates like crazy. But that kind of appreciation doesn't mean the real value. It just means the people keep interested about it, right? So that price keep going up. So there's a lot of money made that way. So that's true, and there's a lot of money made that way. And there was a lot of money made by selling the shovel. What that means is, now, if a gold rush is happening, you have a choice. You can go and join the gold rush and try to find the gold. Great if you found the gold, otherwise not good. Or you can choose to sell the shovels. Now, then whether rush is true or not, of course, you will end up making the money. So a lot of money made on crypto, blockchain, those topics were made on one of those two things so far. But I do not think, I think there's a lot of real value in it. I mean, we talked through it, right? But we are not really there. But I think most challenges are use cases, tools are too complicated. People can't keep this system running. There's a lot of details. So there's details we figure out. So basically there was a big peak and a little bit of time of disinterest. It's now coming back again like crazy. Mainly coming back in 3 topics. I will cover these 3 very fast. First is Web3. So they say Web 1.0 is search, basically static searchable web. Web 2.0 is social web, right? So you also create content, Facebook, Twitter, etc. They say Web 3 is a decentralized web, where Google or Facebook do not call the shots, right? And here a lot of focus on NFTs. I'll talk about them in later, but the idea is that if I create content, the system basically, for example, if my content is sold, every time it gets sold, I get a percentage, something like that. So there's NFT, but for Web3 to really work, you need some reputation system, some identity system, etc. There's a lot of details. But under Web3, what a lot of people looking at is NFTs, right? So the NFT is a way to own an digital artifact. Okay, so the best example, Elon Musk sold his first tweet. Now, selling a tweet, I mean, it doesn't make sense at many levels, but basically you get a certificate saying he owns the first tweet. Now, forget the first tweet, you have a certificate. Now, as long as others are willing to pay for it, there's a market. And they were sold for unbelievable numbers, right? So the NFT or non-fungible means there's only one copy and you can own it, right? So then you can use that technology to basically create a one copy on everything, right? And sell it. It's only have emotional value, right? Most of the cases, right? Because it's not like I can't see the Musk's first tweet anymore. No, I can see it, but somebody owns it. I mean, there can be a legal argument saying if you show it, you have to pay, maybe. So, at least if you want, you can couple it with the smart contract. So that every time it is viewed or something, you get some payments. But basically whoever the content platform has to agree and implement it, otherwise it won't. So there were things that sold for crazy amounts, but then some of them, when they try to sell it back a few months, the things come up with hundreds of thousands of price tag, come into few thousands next round. So it all works as long as people keep asking it. But okay, so but for the NFT, I mean, idea is solid. Basically, for example, uh, if you want to do a land registry, it's an NFT because there's one copy. There's only one land, one copy. You can transfer ownership. So the nice thing about it is that then if I want a land registry, I don't have to re-implement on top of blockchain. I basically use an NFT tool and configure it a little bit, and I can use it. So the real value of NFT is that it simplify enough so that the normal guy can take it and use it without doing blockchain programming. So the metaverse, right? This is another thing that people talk together, right, or under the same topic. This is Facebook and Microsoft. It is basically a decentralized second life, right? So there's a virtual world you can go on by your own name or somebody other name, and you can talk to people, you can go to events, etc. It's as interesting as what you're doing. But for example, now a lot of people working from home, so it might make sense that we all go to metaverse when we are working from home, so that we have the whiteboards, we have to wait to talk, we have to whatever, we have to wait to vote, whatever, so that we work together, right? So it's like a next level collaboration software, right? I mean, it's nice to even now we are using the Zoom. If we could have done it in the metaverse, looking at each other in 3D, maybe it would have been nice. And metaverse would use NFTs to handle the different artifacts, payments, etc. But it's very likely it won't be through Web3. I don't think Facebook will give up the main platform in real sense. I mean, they will make a sense of look as if it is not only them, but I think they will keep controlling. Anyway, you should last DeFi. So this is basically replacing what banks are doing. This has a lot of real use cases. Unfortunately, this has also a lot of real fraud. If, for example, 2021, apparently people lost 10 billion around the hacks and scams of around DeFi. Again, the idea is solid. There's real value, right? But we have to do it properly. There's a lot of unknowns. I mean, I don't think the reason this money are lost, many cases, is not that people, I mean, people are trying to make the quick money. That's one case as well. But there are a lot of other cases that somebody wants to actually make the system work, but there are things they overlook and somebody exploits them. So it is very interesting technology, a lot of potential. It is risky, but potential very high payback. Be cautiously optimistic. Really try to think how. So, okay, let me put it this way. You can build systems, but these systems would be usually used by normal people who don't understand blockchain. And you have to make it in such a way that they can use it. It is very hard because they won't understand most of these details. I think that's where we are stuck. So, okay, I'll close with this, right? So we usually overestimate what can be done in 1-2 years, but underestimate what can be done in 10 years, right? I think that is true for blockchain. I think it is real, and its value will come, but it'll take longer than we think. Thanks very much, and I can take any questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Srinath. From our participants, if you have any doubts or questions about Web 3.0 about blockchains, I think Dr. Srinath might I like to answer your questions now. Is it that will that be okay, Dr. Srinath?
Yeah, yes, of course. Yes.
So you shall ask your doubts or questions if you have.
Oh, you can type it in, I think, in the chat. That's okay.
Until every others preparing the question, Dr. Srinath, I had this problem about the immutability of a block. When a block is changed, you said that we have to change the whole block after that, whole chain after that, or we would have to create a parallel chain. What if we could change a block after we, I mean, if we change the second block, we want to replace it with another, and we change the hash of the third block, I mean, the pointer to the second block. So,
Yes, you can change that, but then you have to change the fourth one. Because you can't, because when you change the third one, that will affect the hash of that third one will change, right? Now that is included in the fourth one. So you have to go and change the fourth one also. Now you have to change the fifth one.
yes, now I understand. I thought a block is not immutable. So if it's immutable,
Sorry. Block is immutable, but the chain is not. I mean, it is. So you cannot mute it in a way that cannot be found. Right? But that, I mean, when we say immutable, what that means is if we change it, somebody can tell.
okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, if you have any questions, you can drop me a mail. Tilna, could you drop me a mail and I can send you the slides.
Hi, sir. I have one question.
Yes.
What do you think, like in Sri Lanka, we have some companies related to blockchain. So, for example, Nifron and other companies, they are partnering with other companies. So what do you think, like Sri Lankan industries, how can we adapt the blockchains in the practical scenario with business world?
There are clearly use cases, but basically we need the buy-in. So for example, I mean, few years back, there were push from the central bank to adopt some of these. It didn't. I mean, there was some work done, but it is complicated, right? So and also has to done carefully. So one option is that government or some like regulate. If a regulator is pushing it, it'll happen. I mean, it has to happen, right? You don't have a choice, right? For example, our Sri Lankan insurance regulator says that, okay, you are tracking your insurance thing in blockchain by this day. It has to happen. So that's one way. I mean, others basically companies has to find use cases. Some of these works are that I mean, we build software for everybody, a lot of people, and then if somebody has a blockchain use case and we have the expertise, we can implement those use cases. So it's I don't think it's very different from the other use cases I explained. I mean, regardless whether it's Sri Lanka or somewhere, the usual challenge is that you have to simplify it enough so that the normal people can use it. Like, for example, if you tell them there is these two keys, you have to set this, it doesn't work, right? So you had to handle it in a way, and then you have to worry about what happened if, okay, for example, you can do app and you put the key in there, etc., but you have to handle the case the phone is lost. Somebody else get it, So there are a lot of things you need to worry about. So the challenge is that there's deployment, but I don't see any special reason Sri Lanka can use those in our use cases. But okay, let me put it this way, right? I mean, we are actually haven't done we have like even like e-government. There's very little digital things we do, right? Maybe there are more simple things we should be doing, like for example, e-government level, etc., before trying to do complicated blockchain things. But in the industry, it depends on the use case. We have to carefully look at it. But I think we can use the technology.
Thank you, sir.
So excuse me, can you hear me? So
Yes.
so since a couple of years, people are talking about new job opportunities around this blockchain technology, like blockchain developer, high paying salary. They are earning high amount of money. Like that, what will be the opportunities in the industry and the job market that generate in future like that?
No, I think I mean if you have experience working with blockchain, it's very easy to find jobs, and I think it will continue to be the case for some time. So okay, this is what I always say, right? You have to get your basics, learn the computer science basics, and then when you know the basics, then you can invest in one of these kind of technologies, right? It could be blockchain, it could be AI, it may be something else. There are like usually jobs to get good salaries and find like good jobs, it's useful to know these technologies, but these technologies shift, come and go. Although the blockchain hype may also come and go, in general you should know the basics, right? For example, you have to you might choose to be an expert in blockchain. It's blockchain and AI. I think there will be jobs for some time, no problem. But make sure you know the databases. You make sure you know how to build a system, how OS works, how networking works. I think you need to know the basics. But then same time you can invest into one technology like this.
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions coming in. So I believe there are no more questions. Thank you, Dr. Srinath, for joining us today.
Thanks, everybody.
And also, I very much like the idea that we can use this technology to avoid surveillance capitalism. And as Dr. Srinath said, we don't know, we always underestimate what can be done during 10 or 20 years. I hope to see a future where surveillance capitalism is no more. And thank you everyone for joining with us today. And thank you again for Dr. Srinath for the informative session and clear, simple presentation. Also, thank you, Dr. Subhajana, for helping us with organizing this webinar. And I think it was very successful. We had almost 70 participants. So thank you everyone for joining with us today. So I think we may conclude the session.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you.